There's too much spin in this world we're in. Think we better call BullBustersRadio. Yes, Steve and Bob are here to dial it in. Think we better call BullBustersRadio. BullBustersRadio.
Okay, good morning. This is Bob Palumbo from the right with my good friend Steve Traynor from the left. We are called the Marketplace of Ideas. We also go by the nickname Bullbusters here because that's what we like to do is cut through the spin and rhetoric that's out there in the political arena and try to find some common ground and some truth and, hopefully move the country in the right direction. And I mean right as in correct, not right as in conservative. I wasn't taking advantage.
Yes, you were. Yeah, don't give me that. Well, it's a crooked path, and it really is. And I think one of the things Bob and I have agreed on, rarely, is that, we'd be arrogant to think that either one or I'd be arrogant, I'll just speak for myself, to think that I have all the answers. I certainly have a lot of questions, but I don't think any ideology or general position can be right all the time. It just can't be. That's a mark of humanity, is that we have flaws. But without a conversation, without a courteous conversation, the conversation that bereft of name calling and epithets, and talking about my grandmother the way you do all the time, Bob. Sorry, Grandma.
Dana Perino is your grandmother?
On my grandfather's side.
Wow.
Yeah, we think that good conversation is going to advance this country, and whereas this crazy rhetoric won't.
You got it. That's why we're here.
All right, so Bob, you wanted to talk about the quote unquote "do nothing Congress."
I did. Okay, there's been a lot of comments throughout the media, both from the president and the press secretary and so on and so forth. We keep hearing this term "do nothing Congress" all the time, and as you were referring to just recently, Steve, they're trying to paint them as obstructionist. And in some cases, a case could be made that, yes, they are obstructing what they consider to be bad legislation. And I would hope that they would. We think back to the, refresh my memory here, Steve, who was the president in the 20s where they talked about the do-nothing president? That was it Hoover?
I'm not telling you. Yeah, it was, you're talking about the first do-nothing Congress?
Well, no, the do-nothing president.
Herbert Hoover, yeah.
Right, in the 20s. But what was interesting is that he took an approach of less government and less intrusion into people's lives. And so his opponents painted that as meaning, well, he's a do-nothing president then. Well, the same thing with the Congress. The Congress, the people that got elected from the Tea Party and those people want less government, less intrusion, less regulation, less taxes. Okay, so, considering that, less legislation then would mean that they are doing less, but it doesn't mean that they are doing nothing. They're actually trying to move the country back into a proper relationship between the voice of the people and the voice of the government. So, the idea that they're obstructionists, yeah, you can make that point, but do nothing is certainly not a fact.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you respectfully, Bob, because, just because I think you're full of it. No, I'm just kidding.
And I am.
Well, that's why that's why DJs like long songs. So that's another story. Okay, let's look at it this way. In 2011, Congress passed the fewest number of bills in at least the last 10 non-election years. You think that's what a colossal waste of time. Well, how about the super committee? What a colossal waste of time that was, picking 12 people that we knew would go nowhere.
Whose idea was that?
Whose idea was it? The great conciliator. And he picked people that, I'll tell you what, we can get into that sometime, but there were some great deals made and rejected. John Boehner made a sweet deal for the Republicans with Obama and failed to tell his caucus that he did, and they shot it down.
Well,
that was a complete lack of communication.
Arianna Huffington likes to call that the object and desire of most politicians is to at least get caught trying. Okay, so in other words, as long as you throw something out there that you can say, hey, I tried, you know it's going to be defeated. You're absolutely sure it's going to be defeated, but come a re-election time, you can say, I tried. They shot me down. It wasn't me. It was them.
It was them. It was the Do-Nothing Congress.
Well, it was a bad idea to start with.
Last year, President Obama signed 62 new laws into law. In 95... let me see. Yeah, the last time Republicans took over the House with a Democrat in the White House was 1995. President Clinton was in the White House, and 88 bills were passed back then. That's about a 25% drop. Not only that, this I got out of the Washington Post. Yeah, I know. It's a newspaper, and to conservatives, anything you have to actually read is bad. Reading is bad. Congress passed 326 bills. Or the House, rather, did, which is 1/3 of the number that they passed in 2009.
Steve, there's another reason why.
1/3.
There's another reason why they didn't pass a lot of bills. Have you ever seen one of those bills? They're about 2,500 pages long. Okay. Yeah. As you say, by the time you read one, it's already the next Congress.
Well, that's not the way it works, because nobody has ever, no sitting senator, I shouldn't say none. I mean, I know Jimmy Stewart did, and Mr. Smith goes to Washington, but that's what they have staffs for. You take a 2,000-page plus bill, like say the Affordable Health Care Act, you're going to have 20 aides, each who are well versed, each reading 100 pages and giving their synopsis and recommendations, because of course nobody has time to read 2,000 pages. Your point is that the bills are too long. I don't necessarily agree with that, because sometimes, 300 plus million people, we live in a very nuanced society. Now, we're not talking about a homogeneous group. We're talking about a very, very diverse group of people.
If it takes 2,000 words to say what you want, 2,000 pages to say what you want to do, maybe you're not saying it right.
Well, that could be. But then again, I think there's a lot of room for argument of that. You know what? I've been a baseball umpire for many, many years of my life. Every year they put a new rule in the book to address a situation in baseball that's never happened before. The Rules Committee sits during the winter. They decide on a new rule, and lo and behold, that rule, as often as not, has horribly unintended consequences, and it's either thrown out or rewritten the next year. So, and again, I'm sort of making your point before about doing less is sometimes doing more, but I think these need to happen on a case-by-case basis. My last point about this is that look at the appropriation bills. Only half of them were passed after all this arguing, and the government going to be shut down. You know what? What it does, it keeps the Congress from more important business.
One of my favorite Bible verses, Steve, not to pound the Bible here, but it's apt. The Bible verse goes like this: in the use of many words, sin is unavoidable. And the more you talk, the more you tend to stick your foot in your mouth. So there you go.
Okay, I got it out.
BullBustersRadio.